you all. This is Dr. Alicia Wax Thomas, and this is the start of your first set of notes for your History 101 Western Civ class. Okay, for your first test will come from an outline with the following topics. We will cover, or I will cover, human origins, the Paleolithic Age, the Neolithic Age, the Bronze Age, the concept of what is a civilization, the first civilization for the West, which is the Mesopotamian civilization, a little snippet about some ancient Egyptian history, from the ancient Near East, as well as the Palestinian region, and a small tidbit of information about ancient Israel. So these are all the topics that will be on your first test, okay? And this will come, you will see this in the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to start on for part 1 here. All right, so but before we get started, I would like to cover 3 types of scientists. The first type of scientist is an archaeologist. And the reason, let me say this, the reason I want to cover these 3 types of scientists that many of you probably are very well aware of what they do already is because we are starting on the BC side of the timeline in this class. And often there is no written record of what took place. So we are highly dependent upon the story that the archaeologist, the anthropologist, and the paleontologist are able to piece together from their scientific endeavors of excavating the artifacts, of piecing together fossils and bones, and knowing the culture of an ancient group of people. Okay, so the first type of scientist is an archaeologist. What is an archaeologist? An archaeologist is basically a scientist who does the scientific study of the remains of an early group of people. And usually an archaeologist will do this by excavating artifacts. Excavating is the fancy way of saying digging, and artifacts is the stuff that they're digging up. Very important stuff, however, but the stuff that they're digging up. Okay? And typically on an archaeological dig, it is not uncommon to find an anthropologist on board. An anthropologist is a scientist who studies, who specializes in the study of a culture of a group of people, and that particular group's unique way of life. So the reason you would want an anthropologist on board an archaeological dig, let's say for example, the artifact that was excavated, the thing that was dug up, let's say it was a bowl, and to just the common eye it looks like a bowl. Okay, and you're like, okay, great, we have a bowl, big deal. But then the anthropologist, who may know more about that particular ancient culture, may realize very early on, this is not just any bowl. This is a birthing bowl. Okay, this was used for the birth of children. And so that's going to broaden and change your outlook on that. So it's very important to have somebody on board who can more readily discern, this is really what this is for, this is not what this is for, this is the grave importance of this particular object. All right, another type of scientist you may see on board at an archaeological dig is one that is known as a paleontologist. And the study of paleontology is when you specialize in studying fossils, fragments of teeth, and bones and skulls, the bones that make up the skull and so forth, human fossils or even animal fossils. Once again, you would want a paleontologist on board at an archaeological dig, because let's say you dig up and you excavate a bone. A paleontologist could have more ready knowledge of what type of bone it is and also have more experience with dating of the artifact and kind of having being able to approximate early on how old is this particular fossil. Of course, more extensive testing would be done to determine that, but they could have some ready knowledge right then and there, which is often important. So these types of scientists, a lot of the information that will be given to you is because of the work that has been done in the past by these types of scientists, two of whom I want you to know the names of. The first one, her name is Mary Leakey. And this is a picture of Mary Leakey right here on the PowerPoint with her husband, who's also a scientist, and his name was Louis Leakey. Mary Leakey was a British citizen. That's not the big deal that I want you to know about her. What I want you to know about Mary Leakey, what is her claim to fame? Why is she on this PowerPoint? Why is her name up here and not your name? Because you're important too, right? The reason Mary Leakey's name is up here is because of the discovery of some prehistoric footprints that had been made back in 1978. And these footprints were found in eastern Africa, specifically in the region of Tanzania. The footprints resembled human footprints. And when they got to dating the footprints and really getting the age of them and doing more testing of it, it's thought that the footprints may actually be as old as approximately 3.6 million years of age. That's the big deal. Okay, so now that's the aha moment, and the question is now, wow, did man walk the earth 3.6 million years ago, or maybe even more? That's what's really getting her name in textbooks. Okay, that's the key thing, not the fact that she was necessarily a woman, even though that is big for some, not the fact that she was a British citizen, but the fact of the discovery that is connected to her name. Okay, she herself was an archaeologist slash anthropology as well, was her specialty. The next scientist I want you to get down in your notes for the name of, his name is Donald Johanson. He's actually an American. Is that the big deal about Donald Johanson? That's really not why he's in the textbooks, though it is a big deal for those of us who are Americans and are proud to say, yeah, an American's on board. His big deal is that his archaeological team made a discovery as well, actually about 4 years before Mary Leakey's team discovered the footprints. Back in 1974, the remains of an adult female skeleton was found, and it resembled human remains. And when they got to dating it, it's believed that it may be somewhere about 3.5 million years of age. That's an approximate number now. Let me take the time to say these dates that I'm giving you, they will vary depending, or the numbers I'm giving you will vary depending upon the source that is used. You could see a variation of 1,000 plus, or even going into the 100,000 plus year mark as far as the variation of these numbers. That is another reason, if you watched the brief video on disclosures and tips, I told you that I'm not going to heavily test on dates, okay, because there is a lot of discrepancy with the time frame of this in many circles, many academic circles. But back to Donald Johanson's discovery. The female, the skeletal remains of this adult female, they have been named Lucy, L-U-C-Y, Lucy. I believe it's after the Beatles song dealing with Lucy and some diamonds in the sky. But anyway, the name of the skeletal remains once again is Lucy. The big deal about this is the age of it. It's approximately, once again, 3.5 million years of age. So now we get to the question once again, did man walk the earth that long ago. Many scientists classify the remains as a hominid, Hominid is what I'm saying. And basically it is a being that walks on two. Okay, it is an upright being. The footprints that Mary Leakey discovered, many scholars say that the footprints had been made by a being known as an Australopithecine, and that's a mouthful, I know. Once again, an Australopithecine, and you'll see the spelling of that on the next slide. But an Australopithecine, once again, is referred to sometimes as a hominid, and that means that it's walking upright on twos. Now, when I say upright on twos, I don't want you to walk away thinking that this being walked the way you and I walk today, as erect as we walk today. When I say on twos, conjure in your mind something that is very hunched over, all right, maybe barely walking on twos, but they were walking on twos, okay, versus four limbs, okay. All right, so next up, getting to the Australopithecines. The Australopithecines may have walked the earth somewhere between 4 million to 1 million BC. That's an approximate number. Once again, it could vary depending on the source. The remains of this group of your Australopithecines, the remains have primarily been found in southern and eastern Africa. Okay, they were not the smartest of creatures. The brain size approximately somewhere around maybe 500 cubic centimeters, which is not large at all. Very, very small. We're talking, you know, like nut size small. The big deal about this group, what I need you to get in your notes, put a star by it. I always tell students, put a star by it, highlight it, underline it, put some sugar dust on it. If I tell you to do that, that means you're probably going to need to know this information for your test. The big deal about the Australopithecines, they're credited as being the first to walk upright. That is their claim to fame, being the first to walk upright. Okay? All right, so the next group, your Homo habilis. Your Homo habilis may have walked the earth as early as 2.5 million BC and may have become extinct somewhere around approximately maybe 1.5 million BC. The remains of this group have primarily been found in eastern Africa. This group, the Homo habilis, getting a little bit smarter than what you had for your Australopithecines. The brain size has increased here to about 700 cubic centimeters, so getting a little more intelligence there. The big deal about this group, their claim to fame, the put a star by it, highlight it, underline it moment. This group is credited as being the first to work with stone tools. Okay, the first to work with stone tools. So with that said, we sometimes refer to them by the nickname handyman. Please get that in your notes. We sometimes call them by the nickname handyman. So I tell students, and I ask students the question, so what is it that the Homo habilis had use of that the Australopithecine did not have use of? And that would be a thumb, an opposable digit, a thumb. And I also tell students, think of everything that you have done this morning since getting up. It may have been brushing your teeth, eating a bowl of cereal, tying your shoe. Oh my goodness gracious, texting, of course. And think of all of those activities and how your thumb was used in each of those activities that I just named. Okay, think of what you are hopefully doing right now. I'm hoping that you are taking notes. Okay, if you are taking notes, whether you're writing them or typing them, your thumb is being used at some point. It is a very important digit. Many of us are very unaware of it and sometimes unappreciative of the goodness of our thumb. But think of your everyday life without the use of a thumb. it would get harder. You could live successfully without a thumb, but a thumb does make your life much easier. Okay? All right, so next up, your Homo erectus. Okay? The Homo erectus, they came on the scene somewhere around maybe 1.6 million BC, and they survived until about approximately 30,000 BC. Um, this group, we sometimes know them by the nickname the upright man. Please get that down. It's called the upright man, as the scientific name alludes, Homo erectus. Okay, but when I say upright, I don't want you to walk away thinking that they walk as erect as modern man walks today. Okay, you still had some hunching over, okay, some bending over, not to the extreme that you saw with the Australopithecine or even with the Homo habilis, but it is not going to be just as upright as you would associate with a modern man walking around today. Okay. This group, remains of this group have been found not only in Africa, but remains of this group have also been found in Asia as well as in Europe. So that means that we have some traveling that's going on at this point if they've been found in other areas. And the brain size has increased. You've gone from a brain size where the Australopithecines, if you recall, with the Australopithecine brain size, I told you it was starting roughly around 500 cubic centimeters. Then we went to 700 cubic centimeters, and now with the Homo erectus, you're going to upwards of 1,000 cubic centimeters. So that's a significant increase, and that intelligence, I would dare say that intelligence was needed for the mobility to move and to travel as they did. Another big deal that I want you to get that is associated with this group, the Homo erectus, put a star by it, highlight it, underline it moment. They are credited with being the first to use controlled fire. Okay, to use controlled fire. That is a huge development as far as the beginnings of man. All right. Your next group would be your Homo sapiens. Okay. Homo sapiens, this is a very crucial development. This stage, this is considered a third stage and a very crucial development of human development. The Homo sapiens appeared somewhere roughly starting around maybe 200,000 BC. And with this group, traditionally, you've had two subcategories in this group, one being the Neanderthal, the other being the Cro-Magnon. I do need to take the time to say that the Neanderthal is no longer grouped under Homo sapiens. DNA work that was done around 1997. So in the grand scheme of things, rather recently, around 1997, DNA work revealed that this is not the correct grouping for the Neanderthal to be under Homo sapiens. But I tell students, you know, you have to ask the question, well, why were they put under there to begin with? And the reason is they had very human characteristics. Okay, we know that the Neanderthal communicated with pictures, they communicated, they had music. We know that they did human things like they had burial rituals. That's very human to have a burial ritual. They are sometimes credited as being the first to have burial rituals. Scientists have found evidence of flowers being placed on grave sites associated with the Neanderthals. So once again, that's something that's usually associated with a human aspect, but they are not considered under this category. The Neanderthals, the brain size did increase with this group to roughly around 1450 cubic centimeters. They could do everything that the other groups could do. They had the intelligence to plan a hunt. Not just, happenstance, ooh, there's an elk going by, let's get it, but actually planning for it, setting traps, that kind of thing. That takes intelligence, okay? All right, your next group, your Cro-Magnons. Now, your Cro-Magnons are still today listed under the Homo sapien category. Homo sapien also, by the way, Homo sapien, the common name, I want you to get that down. The Homo sapien is known as the wise man, okay? This is the grouping that modern man is under. Technically, we're under Homo sapiens sapien, and then Homo sapiens sapien is under Homo sapien. Okay, but I'm not going to get that technical with you on a test. If this were a biology class, it probably would get very technical like that, but I'm not. We're just going to go with Homo sapiens for now. The subgroup under Homo sapiens I want you to get some notes on also include the Cro-Magnons. Cro-Magnons appeared roughly around maybe 40,000 BC. Many remains have been found in Europe, but elsewhere. The brain size has increased with this group as well. The big deal about the Cro-Magnon, this is the put a star by it, highlight it, underline it moment, is that the skeletal remains of Cro-Magnon are identical to modern man. This is a momentous moment here, okay? This is the group, once again, where the skeletal remains are identical to modern man, all right? Get that down in your notes, okay? All right. It's believed that the Cro-Magnons were more advanced in skills as far as a spoken language, of course. They could do everything the other groups that have been mentioned could do. They had superior hunting strategies, and this allowed them to survive more easily. And many feel that it may be the cause of them being able to grow at a faster rate, and that they were the ones who eventually replaced the Neanderthal. Okay? All right, so moving on from there, let's go to the Paleolithic age. Okay? Your Paleolithic age is one of your prehistoric ages, right? I want you to get in your notes what the term paleo means. Paleo basically means early or primitive. The time frame for the Paleolithic age is approximately from 2.5 million BC until about 10,000 BC. All right? The common name for this age is the Old Stone Age. On your test, I may give you some characteristics of the different prehistoric ages, and I may ask for you to tell me which age it is that I'm referring to. You can tell me Paleolithic age, the more academic terminology. You can use the more current common terminology and tell me Old Stone Age. What I will not accept is Stone Age, because you need to be specific and tell me, are you talking the Old Stone Age, the Middle Stone Age, the New Stone Age? I need to know which one you're talking about, okay? All right, some characteristics of the Old Stone Age that I want you to be aware of. There were various characteristics, but these are the three that I really want you to be aware of. Number one, the people who lived during this time frame, they were hunters. Okay, they lived a hunting and gathering existence, and because they were hunters, they were nomadic, which means that they often moved from place to place. And why were they nomadic? Because if you're hunting, you have to follow the migration of the animals. All right, you're paying attention to the plant cycles. So as the food moved, the people moved in order to survive. And because of all of this movement, the communities typically were small. So what do I mean by small? Small is a relative number. What is meant by small? You're talking less than 30, less than 20. I dare say far less than that. But to be on the safe side, we say no more than 20 or 30 in a community. Okay? Because it would be a logistic nightmare to get up and have to move thousands of people periodically. So it's better if they're in smaller communities. So that's what we're talking there. So they're hunters. Now, the next characteristic of this age is that you definitely had a division of labor taking place. So what is meant by that? With a division of labor, you're talking gender. Your males perform certain duties, the females perform certain duties. The duty of the male, they were your hunters, okay? They were the ones who did the hunting. And it makes biological sense. Why? Because men are naturally faster and stronger than women. That is biology, okay? There is a reason. I often tell students there is a reason why if you're looking or watching the Olympic Games and say there is a track and field event, there's a reason why you will not see women being allowed to compete against Usain Bolt, because a woman is not going to be as fast as Usain Bolt. And if a woman can outrun Usain Bolt and win a gold medal and outrun him, then you probably need to be I would guess someone's going to call for some checking of some steroids in her system, because it's just not normal. I mean, I'm not here to get on a feminist soapbox of this or that, yay for, women's rights and all that. That's not the issue. It's just simple biology here. A man has more muscle mass than a woman. Therefore, he's faster. He's stronger. Okay? This is the way the Creator created it. Okay? So that's how I tell students, I'm not here to argue about, well, a woman can do, no, we're not here to do that. The men did the hunting. All right? So what was the job of the women? The number one job of a woman in the ancient world, please make sure you get this down, because this is going to be the case for the entirety of this course. The number one job of a woman in the ancient world was to have babies, all right, to have children, all right. And your women are the ones who lactate, meaning have the milk to feed the young. So if any of you have any experience with newborn babies, you know that you can't leave a newborn baby for hours on end, and God forbid days on end unattended. The child would not survive. A baby typically is going to eat every 2 hours, some more than that. So who is it that has the food to feed them? It's the mother. We don't at this point in history, you don't have Enfamil or Similac. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's baby formula. That's artificial food. Food was provided the natural way. It came from a mother's breast milk. Okay? And so the mother had to be with that child in order for that child to survive. So a mother couldn't be off on, a 2 or 3 day hunt somewhere at a distance from the child. So this only makes natural sense. Also, women, they were the ones who more than likely gathered any edible vegetation that grew near whatever the campsites were for the community. Okay? Next up, another characteristic of the Old Stone Age is religion. This is something that you're going to see throughout the history of mankind. As long as man has existed, you've had some form of religion in place. It may not be a form that you or I may recognize or accept, but there's always been some form of religion. I typically tell students, man has pretty much always tried to find a way to explain what is perceived by some as the unexplainable. All right? So what did their religion consist of? It could have been anything. They could have been honoring fire as a god, or a rock even as a god, but something that they honored as a higher power, okay, and that they acknowledged as a higher power. This is something that you're going to see throughout the history of mankind. All right? Okay, so moving on from there. The next age is one that I just kind of slipped in here, and it is known as the Mesolithic Age. The Mesolithic Age. I want you to get in your notes, what does the word meso mean? Meso means middle. Okay, so this means the Middle Stone Age. Okay. The time frame for this age was roughly from 10,000 to 7,000 BC. The big deal about this time that I want you to be able to recognize or know is that this was a transitional period. Okay, transitioning from what to what? This was a transitional period from the old Stone Age to the new Stone Age. That's really what the Middle Age was. The Middle Stone Age was. It was a transitional period. Okay. Your next age is the Neolithic Age. The Neolithic Age, which dated approximately from 10,000 BC until about 4,000 BC. The common name for this is the New Stone Age. Neo means new. I tell students, suppose you're going to the hospital and you're going to see a patient in the neonatal unit. Are you going to visit an 80-year-old man? No, you are not. That would be the geriatric area of the hospital. Neo, you're going to see the new little person that's been born into the world, okay? All right, so with the New Stone Age, the big deal about this age is that you had an agricultural revolution to take place. So what do I mean by that? Well, what has happened is there has been a shift from purely a hunting existence, a hunting and gathering existence, gathering of plants, to producing food using a systematic approach by way of agriculture. Okay? So this is when people have learned to purposefully grow food for their needs and for their consumption. This is the time frame in which you'll see, say in the Near East, large amounts of wheat and barley and lentils being farmed. In the southern part of Asia, large amounts of rice and millet. In Western Africa, large quantities of yams, millet as well in Western Africa. In the Middle Americas is when you'll see heavy production of beans and potatoes and corn. This is when man is learning and really systematically farming, okay, which is going to greatly increase the food supply. Now, how did they do this? Often they used a slash and burn technique where they would go in and cut down trees or tall grass in certain areas that they wanted to farm, and then they would burn that to clear it out. And the ashes often was used to fertilize the soil, and the farmers would plant crops there for a while and then perhaps move on to another area, and the process would be repeated over time. But because of this agricultural revolution, it is going to lead to settlements. Because if you have a large quantity of food growing, we'll just call it a farm, okay? So if you have a large farm, you can't just willy-nilly just walk away from it whenever you want to and say, oh, I'm going to leave it. I'll be back in 6 months. Well, you might have a problem when you get back in 6 months, okay? Someone has to be there to tend the farm, to nurture it. If any of you come from a farming background, you know how important it is for you to actually have a presence on the land. So it led to settlements. And some of these settlements began to grow, and they grew extensively. They would grow into a population of thousands, and even we would get to civilizations where you would have civilizations of millions of people in a civilization. But I will say this. You had to have the food. If you did not have the food, you could not sustain the people. That is a key connection there. You must have the food to sustain the people, especially a large number of them. Or people will just use human instinct. You're going to go in search of food. Most people will not willingly sit in one spot and purposefully starve to death. Okay? They're going to go look for some food. So, but now the food is there. Now, with that said, I also want to make sure you're aware you still had those who lived a nomadic existence. You still had those who were still hunters and gatherers. This was not 100% of the population that just settled down. Okay, so don't walk away thinking that, because that would be wrong to believe that. All right. Okay, so we're going to stop there. We're going to pick up on part 2 with the Bronze Age.